Good morning, Crystal.
Good morning, ladies and
Was it?
gentlemen.
Did we say Happy New Year already to you? I can't
I
remember.
don't
Did we?
remember, but Happy New Year to
Thank you,
everyone.
and to you.
It started with a bang.
Yeah,
It
It's
did.
did.
it has the world news has me a little bit wondering what is going
Concerned.
on.
Yeah. Well, that's not the
Yes.
kind of bang you want to start any year with,
No.
really.
No.
But we will talk about that because that's an international story that has legs and possibly implications
It
for us
does.
in, wherever. But one of the things that we want to talk about as we navigate into this new year would be those major loans that we get, things like mortgages.
Yes.
So maybe should we start by differentiating the difference between regular loans and mortgages?
Yes. Because most of the loans persons would get a personal loan, a small loan. The requirements for that are a lot less significant. And most persons, once they've been pre-approved, they can take some basic requirements and in a few days or weeks, they can have the money in their hand to use as they would like.
Those would have been like the Christmas loans.
Christmas loans, back to school loans, those kind of things. You can get that money fairly quickly. And persons don't usually have to have a whole set of requirements to be able to say, even if you have house repair loans, the requirements are not as significant or stringent as if you had to get a mortgage.
Right.
So with a mortgage now, because it's so much of a long-term responsibility, you will find that the requirements are a lot more stringent. And at times there are still also regulatory requirements where persons have to know, the financial institution has to know the person they're lending this money to. So a lot of the times people ask, why does the bank need to know all of this information? I just want to have a house, or you want to build a property up for your business or whatever the case may be. But many times those requirements are to make sure that you are not someone who's engaging in nefarious activities, and to make sure you have the means to be able to pay it back, because more often than not, the loan is for 25 to 30 years. That's a long period of time
It is.
to be giving someone money and not being sure if they'll be able to pay you back.
Have you been monitoring the trends in the market? Maybe you can tell us about, are people really still taking up mortgages in the way they did in the past?
Unfortunately, no. I wouldn't know for every financial institution, but I do know that persons, especially in our age demographic, they're not taking up mortgages as our parents did. Circumstances have changed, whereas disposable income for persons back then, in conjunction with the amount of money a loan for a mortgage would be now, makes it difficult. So where your foreparents or grandparents may have been able to afford a house for, say, $100,000, and now a house is $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 for an average size house.
Or for a house even smaller?
So the cost of the house has doubled or tripled, but our salaries, our disposable income hasn't doubled or tripled. So the reality is, it is going to be more difficult for persons to be able to say, let's get a mortgage. You definitely would have to have two persons in many instances so that you'd be able to even afford it.
Now, what banks are doing, and you see a lot of ads in the newspaper and other media, they're really pushing some of the mortgages, trying to give some very
Special rate.
special rates.
Yes.
What should persons, though, look out for so that they're not caught in a trap?
Yeah, even for switching.
Yes. So the refinancing, as you would have mentioned just now, is one of the ways in which they've been trying to attract persons by offering special terms and trying to encourage persons to come over. They might waive legal fees, which is something that a lot of persons should look out for, because legal fees can become quite expensive. So the assumption is, if you've already had a mortgage with another institution, they would have done their due diligence so they could take the risk in terms of waiving certain features and assuming that you would already be a good candidate for a mortgage, especially if you bring your history to show that your payments have been consistent. You're just looking for better terms.
Right.
So all of those things are the reasons why it's so important to make sure that your mortgage is consistently paid, because your history can make a difference in terms of, if you're refinancing with another institution, what kind of rates that you may be able to enjoy. The other thing persons would usually do is to have a lower interest rate, but what you need to be aware of is for how long that rate may be enforced. So many persons might say, you see the asterisks and the terms and conditions apply. You need to look at those terms and conditions.
So you're saying you got to read that fine print.
You do
You got
have
to
to.
spend some time looking through
Yes.
whatever contract you are signing your name to.
Yes. So you might see something saying 3%, and 3% at this point is pretty low and very favorable. And then you look at the terms and conditions and see it's only for 1 year or 3 years. And when you're thinking in terms of a 25-year mortgage, that becomes, is it still a selling point? And it still could be, because if you can use that to your advantage to pay ahead, you get a significant chunk of that early interest down before you normalize into what might be the average interest rate that everyone is offering anyhow. So you could still take it into consideration and see if this will help you to be able to at least manage for the first 3 years.
Right.
And then you could even see how you would go about handling your mortgage after that.
That's with the fixed interest rate.
That's with the 3% in the
With the
early
3%.
years.
3% fixed for 3
And then
years.
whatever it may be.
The variable
going
rate
forward.
going forward.
Because if you know of a financial institution that's offering a fixed rate for the entire
That's
30 years,
wonderful. I've never
should
heard
jump
of
at
that.
that.
I've never heard of that in Barbados. I've heard of it in the U.S., but
most
not
of
in
them
Barbados.
are offering variable interest
Yeah.
rates, but even though it is variable, it's usually along with market rates. So it
Okay.
may not vary too much from what everybody
Right.
else is offering, because then everybody's going to just switch.
Is it wise, though, to ask about what's the highest interest rate that it could go at when you're negotiating a mortgage, so that you can see the most that you will actually have to be paying?
Unfortunately, they won't be able to tell you, because over the period of 30 years, they won't be able to predict, say,
Right.
10 years down the road. Let's
Only
say the
project.
economy turned around and things are looking a lot better,
Right.
and more persons are looking to get mortgages. Demand and supply. So if a lot of people want mortgages, they would carry out the interest rates to be able to, take advantage of the fact that people want these mortgages. Whereas in this circumstances where things are tough and they want to be able to attract persons, those are the kind of things, not just that, but those are one of the things that would influence them bringing down an interest rate.
What can people do generally to safeguard themselves, to make sure that they're not caught in not only in a financial bind, but totally out of pocket trying to repay these mortgages?
The first thing I advise persons is to not get a mortgage up to the maximum of what you can afford. I know it's difficult because you see your dream home and you have the capacity to be able to get it at that particular moment. But because you're not sure how much the interest rates may go up to, and if you look at historical averages and you calculate and you see if my mortgage went from, say, $1,200 a month to $1,500, how much of a burden would that place on me? Because the reality is it could go up to that amount. So if your mortgage at this point is calculated to be $1,200 and that's literally all you can afford, you may want to see how you can adjust your budget. And this is why it's important to do your homework and find out what you can afford first before you go looking at your dream homes, because you get emotionally attached to this particular residence or property, especially if you're a business owner and you see it's in the perfect location, it's exactly where you want to be able to set up shop. And then you realize it puts you to your max. That means for a very long time, you're going to be operating under a very stressful circumstance.
Out to all, as they say.
Out to all. And it's one thing for a crop over loan that's a year, where you live a tight life. And even a year can be very stressful. But 30 years of a tight life, you have to remember that this is going to take up a significant portion of your adult working life. And you still want to be able to live comfortably and be able to adjust yourself for any hardships that come around.
I think this is a topic that we have to
Address
stick on.
some more for sure, and talk more about how generating more income also can help.
Agreed,
as
which we
have
would
in the
definitely
past.
get back to that, but I don't want persons to feel discouraged if they do see persons getting mortgages or trying to figure out how to get that done. So we talk more about the requirements that you would need, how you be able to best manage if you still want that dream home, but you can't afford the mortgage in its entirety. We'll get into all of that in the coming weeks.
I am looking forward to the conversations, Crystal. 2020.
Yes.
We're being positive, right, Shane?
We want
We
people to
are.
afford those dream homes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And people have been getting those I guess some good predictions about what 2020 will bring.
Yeah.
So we want to give people the opportunity to really push to earn.
sure.
And
that
this is
dream
not
life.
to make people feel they have to have a home, because persons are finding great alternatives to home ownership.
Yeah.
So, but this is for those who do want to engage,
Yes.
making sure that they do so carefully.
Yes, it's
All
good
right.
that you've said that, because there are also other options.
There are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might just want investment properties. We're going to talk about that too in the
Exactly.
weeks ahead. But Crystal Howell is always a blessing to talk with, and we hope that you're taking something from the expertise she's sharing right here. And of course, we want to say thanks to our partner who took us through all of December, Republic Bank, for spending time with us. Thank you, Crystal, as always, and we look forward to the next opportunity to talk about managing those pennies.
No problem.